Perhaps it's more about getting outside, which my response to that is, why not go bird watching, take a picture, rather than someone's life? Hello and welcome to part 2 of my response video to Jubilee's Is Eating Animals Wrong? Hunters versus Vegans. Now, if you haven't already seen part 1, I encourage you to go back and watch my reaction video so you can see the entire video in the original context. Because there's going to be a lot to go through in this video, so this is going to be an action-packed, point-by-point analysis. Also, I just want to say, if you're not vegan or an animal advocate, I think you'll still find this conversation useful if you're interested in these issues. Now, if you want to make this a bit more interactive, when the original Jubilee clip is playing, have a think, maybe even pause the video for a moment, and think about what you noticed in the clip. Was there anything you thought was particularly good, or perhaps something that could have been improved upon? Or perhaps any questions you might ask in response to what they said? Then you can listen to my thoughts on the clip and see if we thought of the same things, or maybe you noticed something I didn't mention. Let us know of anything new that you see in the comments, and I'll feature some of these comments in my upcoming videos. Which means it's time for the comments of the week. First, Guyman's comment I think hit the nail on the head by pointing out that this conversation was massively human-centric, even by the vegans, which is a big issue we've been exploring in live streams recently. Also, I think Dave's comment did a good job to highlight the crucial role certain animal advocacy plays in debunking the myth that vegans can't be masculine, which ironically seems to be coming from the fragility of the masculinity by those who are making this claim.
This has been the comments of the week.
Also, if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button because it really does help my channel to grow and to know that what I'm doing is useful.
The first prompt is, I care about animals' well-being. Walk forward if you agree.
Okay, so now that we're getting to the core of the video, I think it's important to note that this style of format is really challenging because they have these question prompts that, while they help to provoke discussion, they can also be very confining. For instance, I would reject the premise of this question in the first place because it's not about our fellow animals' well-being, it's about respecting them for the individuals who they are. So I think to most, and especially non-vegans who are speciesist, this is likely going to be translated to treating them well while we're using them, rather than ending their use altogether. So I think it's really important as animal advocates that we are mindful to challenge the premise when we need to, rather than just accepting it, which we'll see is a continued issue and I think holds back the strength of the messaging from the vegans throughout this video.
Hunters have the utmost respect for animals. And I think that's a really hard thing for people to see. How can you love something and respect something that you kill?
Okay, so there we have it again. The respect language and actually the love language got added in as well.
How can you love something and respect something that you kill?
Now, I think rather than just engaging with this language, I think it's really important to start asking others what they think about the language we're using and that they're using. What does respect really mean to them? Because I think sometimes when we just talk about respect and love, we assume we mean the same thing, when actually we probably don't. Especially when that meaning changes depending on the species of the victim. I think it's crucial that we highlight this as animal advocates. And as far as hunters being respectful, I think a really cool tool that I use often throughout my advocacy on a daily basis is the flip it to test it approach. And would we consider it respectful if a human were to kill another human? With very few minor exceptions, absolutely not. We'd probably consider it one of the least respectful things to take someone's life, and from a rights-based perspective, violating their right to life and those future experiences.
And I think that, for me, is one of my maybe more bigger issues, is not with vegans, but it's more people who eat meat but don't understand hunting. So you're gonna eat meat that was slaughtered at a factory, right. But I can't just give a deer one swift, great bullet in the heart where it dies, out where it's supposed to die.
Okay, so there's a lot in this short clip. The first thing that I think is absolutely crucial to highlight is the difference between treatment and use. Because it sounds like Carly here actually opposes so-called intensive farming or factory farming. So it sounds like she's already largely on board with the animal welfare case, as it were, which is a whole nother discussion. I also think it's important to call out the language here when possible. Notice she refers to shooting it versus shooting them. all of a sudden we might as well be talking about shooting a chair. It's really important we challenge this language when we can. Also, I remember when I first started doing street outreach, the common claim so-called hunters make is this whole one swift bullet and, killing them quickly. Now, from the perspective of free living beings who are already here, not who we're breeding into existence, we could talk about, is it right to kill someone who doesn't want to die? And aren't we violating the right to those future experiences? Because if we can get non-vegans and hunters on board with this idea that our fellow animals are individuals with an interest in a future life, then it doesn't matter how they're murdered. The fundamental wrong is the fact that they're killed in the first place.
Removing the choice from that large of a swath of animal populations just because they're animals.
Now, I quite like the point Danny's making here, although I do think it runs the risk of suggesting that our fellow animals aren't people and that humans aren't animals. So I think it could be a little bit clearer to say just because they're an animal who's a species, that isn't human. Or perhaps just because they're not a human animal. This is obviously very context and audience dependent, and there's several variations we could try here. Perhaps the simplest alternative to this is just because there are other types of animals.
All the meat is done in a way that is humane. Would that make you more inclined to eat meat?
I think that you sort of get into the fundamentals of is it humane to kill something?
Danny, here we go again with the language and calling our fellow animals something.
Is it humane to kill something?
So again, I think it would be stronger to say, is it humane to kill someone? Although I don't think this is the right question to be asking. I know I've done this in my own outreach, but I think when vegans ask non-vegans, is there a humane way to kill something, or better yet, someone? We're inviting non-vegans to ponder, how do we kill them humanely? I don't think we want to be doing this. I think it would be stronger at this point to make a clear delineation between treatment versus use. And that veganism is really about ending the use, not improving the treatment, or so-called animal welfare.
I have to understand and respect and honor that, in indigenous cultures, there's many reasons why people hunt.
Okay, so I appreciate this is a bit of a touchy subject, and we're going to get more into the detail later on. However, I don't think we have to respect murder. I completely acknowledge that everyone's situation can be unique, and that for some, living vegan is easier than others. However, I don't think just because someone has experienced an injustice, that gives them a free pass to commit other injustices. I prefer to try to understand all the injustices and see how we can help dismantle them all together.
I was being taught ethical hunting by an ethical hunter. And again, I think that's a harder concept here, because trust me, they're asshole hunters.
Okay, so first from a language perspective, I'd be really interested to break down what Carly's understanding of the word ethical means and hunting means. Because to me, ethical means doing what's right, and hunting is a euphemism for murdering innocent individuals. I don't see how those two words fit together.
But that's what I saw conservation, and I saw ethical hunting, and I saw why we do it, and I saw the food. I haven't bought beef, in 6-7 years.
Now, first from a language perspective, I think both food and beef here are being used to distance ourselves from the victims and invisibilize them. So I'd be keen to use a non-speciesist alternative to that in my response. And also, the video doesn't really get into who this is, who Carly learns this conservation or ethical hunting from, but it's obvious that somebody else has taught her these ideas. She hasn't come to these conclusions on her own, which I think oftentimes is the case with so-called hunting, that people learn these things from their brother, their father, whomever. So there's a lot of family tension and perhaps emotion wrapped up in this activity that may actually have very little to do with the act of killing someone. Perhaps it's more about getting outside, which my response to that is, why not go bird watching, take a picture, rather than someone's life? I think there's a lot of similarities between these behaviors, and a lot of the same benefits can happen. All right, well, with that, I tried to hit all the main points. Please let me know in the comments anything I've missed. So do make sure to subscribe, that little orange button somewhere down there at the bottom. Make sure to click that so you can be notified when the other parts are released. Also, thanks a lot for all the comments you leave, the likes, the shares. They all really mean a lot to me, because I think there's a lot of these concepts that we can use to strengthen our animal advocacy, especially when it comes to language, and we're going to be able to better do that if we do it together. Thank you for all you do for our fellow animals, and I'll see you in the next video. For free resources, such as a discussion guide and language document, check out veganinteractions.com. Thanks for watching.